This episode of GameBreaker is brought to you by Audible. For a free 30-day trial and a free audiobook, head on over to audible.com/GameBreaker. What's up, everybody? Welcome to GameBreaker for a special interview. Today I am going to be speaking with Mark Jacobs of City State Entertainment and talking about the upcoming title Camelot Unchained. Mr. Mark Jacobs, how are you, sir?
Good. Thanks for having me, Gary.
Thanks for joining us today. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, I've been checking out the game and got lots of questions. Let's start it off.
Absolutely.
For people out there who may not know who you are, who are you? What do you do?
Either the guy who been doing online games forever and killed Camelot, Warhammer, SWTOR, Jimmy Hoffa.
Did they find him?
I'm sorry?
Did they find Hoffa?
No, not yet. I hit him really well.
You did a good damn job, let me tell you.
Yeah, one day when they dig up the Meadowlands and build another stadium, they'll probably find him.
I grew up about a stone's throw from the Meadowlands.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Where?
Clifton, New Jersey.
Oh my God! Why they're up in the Bronx?
Oh, there you go. We're like right across the pond from each other.
Cool.
So tell me this. Let's go back. Your list is long, and you've been doing this for a really long time. Tell me just go back for a second. I want to know a little bit more. Like, how did you even get into like just virtual worlds? What's your earliest memory of just being intrigued by them? Like, what made you want to even get into this genre of gaming? Because I think you're all crazy.
So did my father, my mother, everybody, frankly, who I knew, who I went to school with, who I went to law school with, thought I was insane for, being a game guy. Look, I'd always been a computer guy. I was interested in it in high school. I was a hacker. Got in a little trouble once. Got mentioned in a book, which was really cool. In college, I worked with some guys who were, very smart programmers, and I was kind of the guy standing behind them going, yeah, that'd be really great. That's a great idea. I had no idea how to do it at the time, but I thought it was a great idea. So I would just egg them on. After graduating, I thought I was going to be a lawyer. Went to law school, graduated from Georgetown, and I guess because that wasn't challenging enough, I decided to start a computer game business because I thought that there was going to be something there. And so you're talking the early 80s. And did some games that, frankly, never made it out of the baggies into stores. And then in the mid-'80s, I saw this game called The Scepter of God, which was one of the two first pay-for-play MUDs. The other one, of course, being Richard Bottle's, MUD 1. And played it for a little while, loved it, and got into an argument with the owners, and decided I'd create my own and put them out of business. So 6 months later, I released my first game. A month after that, I released my second game, set up this site that was, just a bank of modems, a Wise computer, and...
The good old days, huh?
Yeah, really not missing that at all. Not at all. Trying to convince the phone company that you're not a drug dealer in the mid-'80s because you have a bank of modems. They had never seen anyone who had a bank of modems who they either thought wasn't a drug dealer or a bookie. And I am, no, I have a law degree, and I make computer games. What's computer games?
Yeah, I mean, back then they didn't exist. There wasn't online games. It was just the birth of it. Gamers now take the MMO genre for granted, but you were there right at the beginning, right at the start of this thing.
Absolutely. And so I created a system called Gamers World, which had my first MUD called Aradath, another game called Galaxy. I was working on a BBS, an email system as well. And a little while after that, I ended up being on the General Electric Network for Information Exchange called Genie with another mud, and I've been making online games ever since.
Crazy history. And then, of course, comes Dark Age of Camelot in there a little bit later, which everybody heralds as probably or does say the best PvP-centric RVR game ever in existence. We're going to get to that, though. I want to start talking about the game you're talking about today, because a lot of it's going to carry over, I think. So the project you're working on currently is called Camelot Unchained, City State Entertainment. Let's talk a little. Tell me about what's the background, the lore, the setting? You're doing like, kind of like this Eastern European lore.
Well, so I've always been a fan, obviously, of Camelot, of the whole, whether you want to talk about Vikings or you call them Norse, or you want to talk about Arthurians or the Sidhe, the Tuatha Dé Danann, fairies, whatever name that people want to give these creatures and these stories, I have always been fascinated with. It's one reason I chose that IP for, obviously, Dark Age of Camelot. And even though I swore after EA and I parted ways that I was never going to make another MMO, I wanted nothing whatever to do with them. It feels like a terrible impression, of Pacino in The Godfather, 3. Every time, I try to get out, they pull me back in.
It's in your blood.
It is. I love them. I love online games. I love MMOs. And, after, 3 years of recovery from, the post-EA and post-Mythic days, I thought, hey, why not? And the team and I had been seriously, or semi-seriously, talking about what we would do if we could make another MMO, or if we could make an MMO. And I finally got very serious about it. And so the talks became more intense, and then financials got involved, and then IP gets involved. And that's, where the legends come in. So if we're going to make another MMO, why not make it on these same stories that not only have I loved, but frankly, a lot of other people love. I mean, obviously not only was Camelot and all that lore popular back when we did Dark Age, but look at how many other games or TV series or films are based on it. So I thought, okay, let's use it again, but let's do something different. So this is not going to be, oh yeah, this is Dark Age 2 with a slightly different name. There's a reason the world exploded in our trailer, essentially. There's a reason there was an apocalypse, and that is so we can take these stories and put a totally different spin on them. So, people will not be looking at this and going, oh, wow, it's going to be Dark Age of Camelot 2. It's got to be exactly like Dark Age of Camelot 2. That's what Mark is doing. No, Mark is saying, I am saying, I hate when people do that. I am saying, not the, just the whole Mark says. Sound like a football player. I didn't want to do that, and I didn't want to tell people that that's what we were going to do. So we are taking some of those same stories, some of those same, beings, creatures, legends, lore, magic, etc., and starting from scratch almost. Yes, obviously there are Arthurians. Obviously there are Tuatha Dé Danann. But how they have come into being in this world, what they look like, is not going to be what people, I think they're going to look like. And that's where the magic comes in. And that's where the, you don't want to say the breaking of the world, because the world is still there, though that's a term that's used God knows how many times in various books and games. But it is quite a change. The veil was pierced, magic and other things came in, and what we have is a very fresh look at this IP and a very different game, in terms of the stories and the background than I think people might expect.
So what type of MMO are you looking to create here with Unchained? I mean, a lot of people are like, is it a, the two terms that we've kind of grown used to are theme parks and sandbox. Is it a theme park? Is it a sandbox? Is it something else? Give me a little, what can MMO players kind of expect?
So first of all, I really, when you see the words theme park and sandbox being used all the time, generally either to denigrate a game or to, you know, put you in the good graces of people on various forums, I think that using either term for this game wouldn't be true. You know, which is, and you see developers doing it, and they go, yes, this is going to be a theme park MMO. No, wait. You know, to me, or a sandbox MMO. To me, that conjures up Minecraft, which is, without a doubt, one of the greatest, most important games of this time. You know, and it is a true sandbox, because what do you start with, right? So I think we need to be really careful when we're talking about a game as complicated as an MMO to label it a sandbox game, which is why I have said also a number of times it is not a sandbox game. Does it have sandbox elements? Absolutely. Just as Dark Age did, you know, back in the day, at least by today's definition of sandbox. Is it going to be theme parky? Well, theme parky is defined by, wow, walk from point A, get a quest, then walk to point B, point C, and stuff that Richard Garriott talked about back in the Ultima days, or I talked about as well, making the game like Disney World, where you just go from place to place. No, it's not going to be that at all. First of all, there is no PvE in this game. No PvE quests. No PvE leveling. You will not be going from place to place with a giant question mark, you know, being your one and true and best guide to the world. This game is all about the RVR and every aspect of RVR.
Explain that, because there might be some people out there who do not play Dark Age and don't understand what RVR is, because we haven't seen it done like that in years. So maybe give a little backstory. Exactly how does that system work of RVR, realm versus realm?
Okay, realm versus realm, which is a trademark term by Electronic Arts, all rights reserved, is really a style of game where multiple realms, obviously Dark Age of Camelot has 3, Warhammer 2, you know, WoW has 2, where all the people of this realm, frankly, hate everyone else. You love your realm mates. You love the people in your area. You know, the guys who you're going to be working with, the guys who you're going to be fighting with. And you go out, you know, quite frankly, into the woods with big sticks and hit each other over the head until you get what you want from them. Whether it's, you know, looting their corpse or taking their relics, you know, trashing their land. It is all about players fighting other players. But what really differentiates it from what would be considered open PvP games is that, again, everyone on your realm is your friend. You cannot fight them. You cannot kill them. Other than trying to be a jerk, you can't even really grief them. You know, your spells generally do not affect them, at least in a negative way. And that's really one of the key, or the key differentiator between RVR and PvP. In PvP, especially, again, open, you can kill anybody for any reason, generally. Whereas in RVR, you can only kill the bad guys. Everyone in your realm is good. Everyone in the other realms are supposed to be bad.
Does territorial control come with that as well in Camelot? Is it going to be all about territory?
Oh, absolutely. And this is where some of the sandbox elements come in. You know, we are going to start with a lot of space for people to go out and to fight over, to build on. You know, they are going to be, you don't want to say they're going to be building the world, because that gives, I think, players a false impression of exactly what they can do in the world. But they will be building lots of parts of the world, lots of pieces. And that's what they're going to be fighting for. You know, you want to be able to control the land, because if you can control this land, or you can control this structure, you will gain benefits from them. You'll gain access to certain mines, to certain materials, to certain crafting stations. And you're going to obviously try to keep them and hold them from the bad guys.
Going into the territorial control stuff, is that going to be persistent? Is it going to be persistent control? Are things going to reset? Or is it going to be as long as your realm can hold an area, you can hold it until somebody takes it down?
Exactly. We're going for persistent. You know, if it resets, you know, every night or every few hours, then it really isn't, you know, a persistent open world RVR game. You have to be able to take something.
And this is where I start to love the game. This is really where what starts getting me, because we just had this conversation where we talk a lot about MMOs, obviously, around the office with all of us, and we're all armchair quarterbacks here. But the risk has just been totally stripped from almost the genre. There's not many games out there anymore that I feel like over the years they've turned into these almost feel-good slot machines of just like go and pull a lever and give me something I feel good about myself and I go home. And nobody loses. And to me, is that a game? Is that truly a game where there, where there's not a loser? This is where I start. There's so many more things to talk about with Unchained, but this is where I really start to get my blood going as far as a game design goes.
And Gary, I totally agree with you, because it really, look, it's kind of like life now, at least in the United States, where, and this is something that's been talked about for years. If you make every little kid feel special because they were able to walk down the soccer field, then is anyone really special? If we're giving out awards for everything, then none of our children really feel like they accomplished something, because everybody.
Literally 15 minutes before this interview started, we were talking about this, and one of our producers, who I think you met, Quinn, actually made the analogy of saying it's like parenting these days. You go to a baseball game and there are no losers anymore. And I'm like, that's the problem. Like, that to me is an issue. Like, somebody needs to win, somebody needs to lose. All right, I'm going into we're digressing here.
No, but I couldn't agree more. And that's one of the key differentiators with this kind of game. Yes, you are going to lose at times. You are going to go into battles you're going to lose. We're not going to hold your hand and go, oh, good, you're so, did a lovely job there. No, you lost, okay? Yep. And the winner gets the structure, or the winner gets the territory, or maybe your town gets burned. Oh, well, it's a game. And if we can't, in our games, have risks and have winners and losers, my God. I mean, talk about small, tiny part of our lives, then where can we? It's horrible. I couldn't agree more. As a parent as well.
It sounds like also from some of your statements that your expectations of player base are actually you're making this game for a smaller player base.
Absolutely. Look, I am so tired of watching companies try to chase WoW. Back when we went into development with Warhammer, we said we weren't going to chase WoW. And my predictions in terms of numbers to EA during the merger and acquisition talks actually turned out to be pretty accurate, at least the launch numbers and while I was still there. That is a losing proposition. Nobody has come anywhere close to WoW's numbers other than WoW. And it doesn't matter, frankly, how much money you've spent on the game. It doesn't matter how talented the dev teams have been. No offense at all, towards BioWare. BioWare spent a ton of money, had some great developers. I mean, obviously the doctors and that team had a ton of experience, and nobody really made RPGs, or frankly even makes RPGs, better than BioWare did. And they couldn't, come close to WoW's numbers. No one has, no one will, other than probably Blizzard. So I wanted to set expectations for this game where I thought the numbers could end up. I don't want players, thinking this game is going to be for everyone, because it won't be. I don't want anyone who invests in this game to think, oh yeah, he's really chasing WoW numbers. I never did, don't want to do it, didn't want to do it at EA, and I certainly don't want to do it now. This game will have a small audience, and that's fine, because this audience is going to be the audience that really wants to play this game and is not looking for, CU to be something other than it is. And that's absolutely one of my key, frankly, key reasons for doing this game.
Let's talk about some of the, you call them the foundational principles of Unchained. Run by some of the big ones. I know we probably don't have time to go through every single one, but let's educate everybody on, what are the big principles here that are inspiring the game?
Well, first of all, choice matters. If you look at the evolution of RPGs from more the pen and paper days to the early computer games to now, a lot of games, not all RPGs, have certainly dumbed down the genre. You have fewer choices in games today than you might have had way back when. People, get offended, just as a number did, at the thought of, having race matters in an RPG or gender matters, in RPG, gets people blood boiling. I want choice to matter. I want your choice of class to matter. I want your choice of race to matter. I want all the choices you make in the game, or as many as we can, of course, matter. Another one is no hand-holding. If you look at the evolution of MMOs, we have gotten progressively more and more hand-holding. And look, I am partially responsible for that, having, been involved in 2 of them, where we've made it ever and ever easier on people with our maps, with our dungeon finders, with the looking for group, tools. And I want to get away from that. I want to go back to a more old-school approach to some of these, not because they're technically challenging, because quite frankly, a looking for group tool, please. If you can make an MMO and can't make an LFG, you shouldn't be making the MMO.
It's about bringing the exploration, the imagination back to the player, isn't it?
Exactly. And I think on the, the episode where you guys talked about me, you and Mike were very, hyped about the having nighttime matter, and weather matter and things like that. And that's also what I want to bring back. Yes,
we're old guys. Me and you back in the day. I mean, I remember playing those games and some of those technical limitations, like in EQ and stuff, where you couldn't see a couple feet in front of you, or it may have been a technical limitation, but man, they made your brain just start firing off, and you were scared. And if you ended up fighting some spider, you were going to be like, holy shit, like I'm going to die. Like this means something, and I don't want to lose XP. And we've lost a lot of that.
Exactly. And so I want to bring that back. I want to, have randomness play a bit more of a role in CU than in most RPGs, and especially MMOs. And that's also been a steady progression, as people, either complained about more, or we perceived that they were complaining about more. It's your random number generator that killed me. It's your damn code. I died just because of the code. And so going from a system where there was less randomness, less chaos, seemed to make things, easier on the developers, and, certainly stem some arguments with the players. But I want to bring some of that back. I want people to come in to see you and not know what exactly is going to happen every night. I want them to come in and wonder, wow, I wonder what, strange or bizarre thing may happen. Look, this is magic. This is fantasy, for God's sakes. We should be able to do stuff like that. I mean, here we are in a world supposedly without any magic, without dragons, etc., in the United States, and weird stuff happens all the time. People spontaneously combust, and we can't figure it out. So yet in a fantasy world, the idea of randomness and chaos and strange events happening should somehow be less acceptable? No, it should be more acceptable. And so we're going to try to add a lot of that into this game as well.
All right, I'm going to get into some specifics. I know I've only got you for a limited amount of time today. We're going to have to book another interview because I'm going to have to talk to you a lot longer than this. You talk about how swinging an axe is actually going to make your players stronger. So I got to ask, are things going to happen, if you decide to, switch up your path and you start training in different ways, let's say in more magic, and you don't utilize something like a sword, are you actually going to start decreasing in strength and things like that? Are you going that far?
Well, we're certainly going to have a skill progression based on use. Whether we have a skill degradation system as well is something we're going to talk about with the players. If we did have one, it would be slow, because let's face it, you don't want to be, you want to be, hardcore at some level, but you don't want to be ridiculous. If people leave because they, have an unexpected emergency, or if they take a break from the game, and they forget to put on whatever setting you say to keep your characters intact, do you really want them to come back and all of a sudden they feel like they've wasted weeks or months? Or somebody who wants to experiment, with a different system or, a different weapon. Do you really want to say to them, hey, yeah, glad you had a great week, but what you did before, gone. So it's a matter of balancing there. And there are some things that, of course, just like Open PvP, We could be more hardcore if we wanted to, but that's not fun. And, you know, when we're looking at the game, whether it's to, you know, have less information, as you talked about, with a map, so you can explore and get that feeling of exploration, which is a good thing. There are some things as well that we're going to say, well, yeah, you know, maybe we don't want to put those in because they really aren't fun. They don't add anything to the game, whereas something like limiting fast travel has a huge impact on the game. Mm-hmm. And just to, you know, ignore those not fun, not additive, not important things. There's no reason
that. Unpack the fast travel thing for me, because that was something I was going to ask about. You talk about how you're going to have really limited fast travel options. So what's the philosophy behind that? How do you feel that that impacts the user's experience and how it adds to the experience?
Well, in RvR, it's huge. In PvE, not having fast travel can make things obviously kind of dull, and all it's doing is slowing down your leveling curve. But in RvR, if you have an RvR game where everyone is popping back up, you know, like some bad whack-a-mole game, then it's going to take some of the, not only the fun out of RvR, but it makes it harder for, you know, one side to win. Because if all that's happening is people are killing each other, getting res instantly, coming right back, you know, up into the fight, it's like a soccer game, again, between like 6-year-olds, going back and forth and back and forth, and nothing really gets done. And it's the same with fast travel. I want to make death sting a little. You know, just like the old, you know, old games like Camelot and obviously EverQuest. And I also don't want to put any system into RvR that's going to end up really hurting it. And if you can make fast travel, if you allow fast travel, excuse me, in large numbers from one place to another, then it kind of takes out a lot of the strategy that players are going to use in order to take these structures or to save their town or to destroy another town. You know, because if you're out there scouting, and let's say you're doing a great job, you know, you're really keeping an eye on what's going on out there, and you see that, okay, here come a whole bunch of, you know, crazed Vikings over the hill, and, you know, they're heading right for your town. Well, if you simply have to send a message to somebody, that somebody sends a message to a whole bunch of other somebodies, and 30 seconds later, there's 200 Arthurians standing, you know, before the town. Then those Vikings, who may have run quite a distance to get there, or even if they have limited fast travel, they still get there, and now they find that any planning that they did is now useless. Mm-hmm. Because all of a sudden, this other group, larger group, you know, got in and is going to stop them. And especially when you look at the typically unbalanced nature of any, you know, tri-realm or, you know, realm versus realm game, where you're not going to have the exact same numbers in an MMO for any one side generally. That if you have this small group who's trying desperately, you know, to do some things while the big boys, you know, battle it out, if the big boys can go, oh, wait, there's a small group going down there, we're just going to, you know, pop this button and send 50 guys to wipe them out, then that also takes the fun away from that smaller group. And it makes it, you know, not necessarily pointless to play, but a lot less fun.
And possibly teetering on frustrating, which
I think beyond teetering, I think,
yeah. How you mentioned earlier about the game will have no PvE quests, or I guess unpack it for me like a little bit. How a lot of our viewers may be unfamiliar with just the idea of not even having a PvE leveling system. I mean, what's the leveling system like? What's your vision for it? You know, what is there PvE? How will it serve the game, if there's any? Just kind of explain that to people, because I think a lot of people are scratching their heads at that, going like, "Huh? What do you mean? There's no question mark above his head?"
And I can't blame them. I mean, you know, look, you look at the concept of no PvE in a world where, you know, PvE games dominate MMOs. I mean, even if you took WoW out, forget those, you know, 9.5 million users from that dead game, right? I mean, seriously, right? And can you believe people are still talking about this? That it's a dead game?
Oh, it happens every time there's an update. Yeah.
Oh my God, the two things that are going to survive nuclear winter are going to be cockroaches and WoW.
And
then,
so true.
After that, the cockroaches are going to say, oh, WoW is dead, and they'll still be playing the game. I don't think anything will ever kill WoW. But what no PvE means, and really why it's important for this game, is if you look at the difficulty of making any MMO, and it really doesn't matter whether it's a pure PvE game or a pure, PvP game, or RvR, which is sort of like the, hybrid between the two in some ways. It's hard. I mean, it's just hard. You look at how many MMOs have gone into development, since the 90s, and you could probably only name a dozen, or maybe 2 dozen if you're really into the genre, that have been financially successful. It is really difficult. And PvE is fun. I love PvE. I love RvR too. But trying to put the two together and create a system where, sorry, my guys are making faces out the window, where you're trying to balance a game for both the PvE players and the RvR players, it becomes so much more difficult. Whether it's how your skills work, or how you acquire materials, or money, or weapons. It's a never-ending battle. I mean, I hate to use that word, describing what happens with the players, but that's what it is. Because you have the PvE guys, it all starts happy. Oh, PvE guys and the RvR guys are all getting along together. And then they become like this very dysfunctional family at Christmas, where, they start sitting at the same table but barely talking to each other. And then by the time dinner's done, somebody's going to get a divorce. Somebody wants to commit murder. And somebody's already stormed out. And that's what happens with, and it's happened with every game that has featured PvE and RvR. And as a small studio, especially as a small studio that, frankly, really just wants to do one thing, focusing on RvR allows us to create a leveling system, a skill system that only has to do one thing right, and that is take care of the RvR players. So we don't have to worry about what impact this skill will have, for example, on people trying to kite, a skeleton. Or we don't have to worry about, people just generating excess income by killing, trash mobs to get the trash loot. Or people, of course, raiding dungeons again and again and again, trying to generate, whether it's cash or items. So by focusing only on RvR, we can put in a leveling system that is not only dedicated to this player, but really does it with all the other systems in mind without having to worry about how, again, PvE will affect it. So whether it's the crafting system or the housing system, or RvR, itself, these can be balanced so that the players who are engaging in these can be really good at what they do, can level through doing what they do, can acquire the raw materials, can acquire cash, or the crafters can just worry about leveling their crafter and making gear that nobody else can make, and that never have to worry. They never have to worry, about drops from PvE quests or dungeons, etc.
And I imagine that's going to be a very big part of the game, is resources and crafters and things like that, actually bringing true meaning back to the world and guilds and players. And again, creating that social stickiness of why groups actually want to play these games together.
Absolutely.
Can you tell me anything about the combat system? Is it too early on? Is it what can players expect? Is it kind of traditional? Is there anything in there that we want to point out?
Well, if you mean by traditional, slow and clunky, no, it's not going to be, traditional. I think if you look at games like Guild Wars 2, and you look at how fluid their combat system is, that's what we're shooting for. I mean, it's not even what we're shooting for. That's goal number one for Andrew and the programming team. We have to have a combat system that is absolutely every bit as good technically as Guild Wars 2 and games like it. So that's the first thing. In terms of any more details on the combat system, it will be class-based. So, we do expect people to have and fill, whether you want to call it the Trinity or some variant on the Trinity, very specific roles. But we also want people to be able to customize their character more. So you're certainly going to have a wide selection of skills and abilities, no matter what frankly, no matter what class you are, other than a crafter, to go into combat with. Really, the other thing that is incredibly important that, we need for this game, and that is to have large battles. Going 8 on 8, 10 on 10, 20 on 20, that's not large scale. Going 50 on 50, that's not large scale. We're trying to, do not only what we accomplished with Dark Age, obviously, without the slideshow that it was at times, but that's where we want to, surpass Dark Age and other games. We want these large epic battles. We want people, not only fighting in small groups when they feel like it, but to look forward to fighting in large groups. And whether they're going after, again, structures, or going after towns, if they're going after resource control, we want them to really have a fun experience. And you can't do that if the combat is clunky, if the skills are boring, and they've seen the same system time after time again. So we are definitely going to be taking some chances and doing some things, differently from most MMOs.
All right, so March, you're launching a Kickstarter campaign in March for Camelot Unchained. What made you go to Kickstarter instead of going the traditional route?
A whole bunch of reasons. So I don't hate publishers. I really don't. I've worked with a number over the years. Some I've had great relationships with. And there's always a lot of people, regardless of whether it's EA or other studios or other companies, that I have a lot of respect for. But let's face it, going to a publisher and saying, hey, I want to make this really niche game, and I don't think there are going to be a ton of numbers there, and it's going to be risky because, after all, if you look at the battlefield of MMOs over the last 20 years, you've got more corpses than people walking around upright. Going to them and trying to sell them that, not really a great idea. Second, even though I like some of the publishers and people, I want to make this game. I don't want to make somebody else's game. I'm tired of making other people's games. I want to make this game. And I want people who believe in it to have a chance to help back it. And one of the things I have to be really clear about with the Kickstarter, and I've said this in any interview where I'm asked, I'm putting my own money into this. I'm putting $2 million of my own money to match what I'm asking for players. We're also, we have another $1 million, and I'm looking for another $1 million after that as well from investors. So this is not, oh my God, give me money, I want to make this great game, and I have no risk whatsoever. No, it's my money. And it's not like I'm a billionaire. EA was not that generous when they bought Epic. I kind of wish they were, but they weren't, of course. So the amount of money I'm risking is a significant amount of my money. But that's how much I believe in the game. And if I go to a publisher, and even if I go to the publisher and say, hey, I'm going to put up my own money, and I want you to put up some of your money, there'll still be the ongoing, well, what about if you do this? And, well, we don't kind of like this idea. And, look, it's not that I'm right all the time, because I'm not. And any developer who says they're right all the time probably hasn't offered an opinion his entire life. But I want to make this kind of game. And I want to make the game that our studio is excited about. And if there are enough people out there who agree with me, who think that this kind of game is something they want to play, then our Kickstarter will succeed.
I do believe there are. You've got a supporter right here. I will absolutely be supporting Camelot Unchained. We need to follow this up, because I know I've got you limited today. We need to maybe do like a series of where we can kind of dissect Camelot Unchained leading up to it. We're welcome back anytime you want, and we'll definitely be following up on this, of course, in March. Is there a date yet set for the Kickstarter?
Not yet. We said March because, frankly, as we're trying to get out the other March, March on Oz, our iPad game, get the latest version of that out. I had to keep that promise first before I start making promises to other people about what we can deliver. And so we actually just are in the process of uploading the latest version. So now we can focus, at least I can focus, and some of the other team members been focused back on the Kickstarter. In terms of coming on again, Gary, thank you so much. Anytime you want, I'll be happy, because as you can tell, I'm really shy and I hate to, talk. And
I can tell. We could do this for like 4 hours. I got so many questions, but make sure to go over and check out citystateentertainment.com. That is Mark's company here, where you can get to the, what's the URL actually, straight to Camelot Unchained? Is that they can get to it from that?
I believe it's citystateentertainment/Camelot Unchained, or just www.camelotunchained.com.
Yeah, there's a bunch of great blog posts up there that Mark has been putting up there to read about it, and you can get into a lot more granular information about the game and the philosophy behind it and all the inner workings of it. So, Mark Jacobs, pleasure to meet you, sir. Thanks so much for coming on the show, and like I said, you've definitely got a supporter here. I will definitely be kicking in for the Kickstarter. Love it.
Thank you, Gary. Again, thanks for having me on, and I would definitely love to do it again. This was fun.
Sounds great. For all your video game news, keep it locked in right here to GameBreaker.tv all day, every day. And of course, we will be covering more Camelot Unchained as more details unfold. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.